If the idea of asking for more money, a different project, or even just clearer boundaries at work makes you uncomfortable, you are not alone. Most professionals I work with are confident in their abilities, but they hesitate when it's time to speak up for what they want. Why? Well, for many, they don't want to be seen as difficult or entitled or pushy, or they've asked before and didn't get the response that they hoped for. So now they're questioning everything. But if you're staying quiet, it doesn't protect your reputation. All it does is help you stay stuck where you're at. And that discomfort that you're trying to avoid, it is costing you clarity, progress, and sometimes even respect. In this episode, we are going to talk about how to ask for what you want in a way that's direct and strategic without steamrolling people and without abandoning yourself in the process. Because advocating for yourself isn't rude, it's a skill. And like any skill, you can learn how to do it with confidence. Welcome to Control Your Career. I'm Julia Toothacre, your strategic career consultant, and I'm so glad that you're here. This season, we are talking through real career challenges that professionals face, especially when you're established, experienced, and trying to move forward with intention. Today's topic, how to ask for what you want. And in many cases, how to ask for what you want without feeling like a jerk, which I think a lot of us have felt at some time or another. Whether it's a raise, a boundary, a role change, or even just more respect, if you have been holding back and biting your tongue because you don't want to make waves, see what I did there? This one is for you. We are going to walk through how to make clear requests, how to prep for uncomfortable conversations, and how to separate being assertive from being aggressive. Let's get into it. Let's go through talking about why asking for what you want feels so hard. And unfortunately, through my experience and the experience of many of my clients, this is particularly hard for women, BIPOC, and first generation employees. And this is because we are taught to prove our worth through action, not ask for it or build strategic relationships. And so what that means is we are told if I work hard enough, then I'm going to get where I want to be. I just need to keep working harder, do more, and I'm going to get there. But that's really not the reality. And speaking up can feel like we are rocking the boat, especially in environments where simple requests can be viewed as complaints. And we will talk about that. There's a fear of being labeled as too much or not a team player or demanding, which I can tell you happens more often to women than it does to men. For myself, I'm a very direct communicator, and for a woman, that comes off as aggressive and demanding when really I'm just asking a direct question. But people expect women to show up a certain way and have a certain demeanor. And so if you break that, then people don't know how to figure that out. So it can be a little bit hard for women to step up and actually ask for what they want if they've been given some of these labels in the past. But here's the reality. You cannot control how other people view or interpret your communication. So yes, I can add a bunch of flowery statements and I can adjust my language to an extent. But at the end of the day, me being direct and straightforward should not be seen as a negative. And in most cases, the people that are receiving me that way have their own work to do. But that still creates barriers for me in the workplace. And personalities are all different and interpret communication differently. And it's hard to say, I'm the one that has to change my communication style. But at the end of the day, if I'm in an environment and a culture that requires that, then sometimes that is a sacrifice that I have to make until I can be in a culture that appreciates the style that I am bringing to the table. Something to think about as well, and this is especially prevalent within the US American working culture, is that the cultural expectations often reward compliance over assertiveness. And so if we are in especially any kind of corporate environment, but honestly, really most working environments at this point, they just want you to comply. They want you to do the work, do the thing that you have been asked to do. Anytime that you come to the table, maybe more directly, or you have ideas, sometimes they like it or they say they like it, but really it can be seen as assertive. And in some cultures, it's not good. So you have to understand the culture of the organization that you are in. Here, part of the problem though with that is if you are in a counterculture situation, then staying silent can really lead to burnout, resentment, and then missed opportunities. So some of this for us is really understanding the culture that we're in and why it feels so hard for us to actually speak up within that culture. And so I'm going to speak to women right now. Are you in a culture that is male dominated? Right. And maybe not even male dominated, but more patriarchally dominated. So there might be women in leadership, but those women believe that they need to act like men in order to get ahead. That is very common. And so you have to understand that culture. You have to understand where you are at. One thing that I want to make sure that we understand through this is that being clear about what you want and need is not demanding. Even if people make you feel like it's demanding, it's not. It's part of managing your career and doing so strategically, but it might mean that the environment you're in is not right for you. So let's use the Control Your Career framework to work through what it means to ask for what we want in our career without, feeling pushy, without feeling like we are being really aggressive with it. So we've touched on this already, but we're going to start with realistic reality. This is stage 1 of my process. And this is where we are looking at what is real, what is happening right now. This topic can bring up a lot of feelings for people. I know for me, even as I was planning this episode, I could feel inside of me how frustrated I was, even just talking about this and teaching on this topic, because I have my own experiences that I have gone through related to this. So you want to make sure that you take a step back, take your emotions out of it as much as you can, and look at what is happening right in front of you. And so let's ask ourselves what is happening. So what do you actually need? So you're talking about asking for things, it might be a raise, it might be a promotion, it might be a certain project at work. Like, what is the thing that you need that you are not getting? So really figure out what that is for yourself. Have conversations already happened around this topic? And if they have happened, I want you to revisit those conversations and really ask yourself, did I ask well? Did I have the right information? Who did I talk to? Did they need more information? Did they have something else going on that really hindered me getting what I wanted out of that conversation? Okay. If you haven't had that conversation, this might be one of our goals, right? Goals and actions. Then what conversation does need to happen in order for you to get the thing that you want? Is it possible that somebody is blocking you? A lot of times it's going to be a manager, unfortunately, but sometimes it's a coworker. Sometimes it's somebody we don't even realize that's blocking us from being on a project or getting a promotion. So definitely understand who might be blocking you in this. If it is your manager, again, you have to break down what is that communication block between the two of you. Something else to look at, and this is particularly around promotions and projects and things like that. but is your role changing without your input or permission? I'm seeing this happen a lot, especially as companies are going through layoffs and they're trying to compensate for the people that they've laid off. And so the people that have stayed are getting a lot more work, and it's been frustrating. What happens then is you're afraid to speak up because you don't want to be next on the layoff list. And so that can hold you back from asking for anything, asking for a promotion, all of that. So this is part of realistic reality in your situation, in understanding what the landscape is within your organization and culture. It might not be a good time to ask if your company is going through layoffs. You might have to just hold on and see what's going on. But if you're getting a lot more work put on you, then that's also something that you need to address with the manager in terms of a change of title, a change of compensation, things like that to match the level or type of work that you are doing. And then the other thing I want you to ask yourself in regard to this realistic reality is, what is the cost to you if you stay quiet? And this is something that for some of you, you've been quiet for so long that you're already seeing the cost of that, which is you're frustrated, you're burnt out, you're not getting what you want in your career, and you're just annoyed with everything that's happening. So really, if you're at the beginning stages of this, then think about, where could this go? What is the cost of this? For some of you, you're going to work through this and realize that you're not in the right culture, you don't have the right manager, all of that. And then you're going to end up going into a process of, I need to find another position. We're not going to go into the depths of that today, but that is something that you might realize about this conversation. And so you want to make sure that you are aware of that. And one thing to remember as we're having this conversation about realistic reality is you can't advocate for something if you're not clear on what is not working. So a lot of times we know that something's happening, we feel it, we understand that something's not right, but we haven't taken the time to really break it down. We haven't done the realistic reality process to be able to go, yes, this is the thing that's not working for me. And I think that we can fix it if I can figure out how to ask for it. Right. So really honing in on what is the issue? What is the thing that I need to be able to speak up on? And then now let's move to stage 2, which is identity analysis. And so this is really looking at our personality and our preferences. And I will say for this topic, communication is going to be at the top of the list, because this is about how do we communicate? How do we talk about, asking for what we want and building a case for it? In some cases, there are also relationships that have to be built. And we've done a couple episodes around influence that you might want to go back and look at that as well. But let's ask some questions to help determine who we are in this process that might be able to give us some idea of the goals and actions that we're going to need moving forward. So I want you to ask yourself, do you avoid conflict? Because at the end of the day, asking for something for some people can feel like a conflict. It can feel like, I'm asking for this thing and I might not get it, and that might create some tension. And so it can be really intimidating for people. So if you avoid conflict, then this process might be even harder for you. Or do you over prepare? Or in some cases, do you delay conversations? So really understanding your approach to this is going to be really helpful in what you need to personally work on to be able to advocate and ask these different questions. Also think about what makes you confident in asking for something. So what do you need to be able to share that's going to help you feel like you're asking the question well? So for example, we have people who will use data to build a case, or they're going to use storytelling to build a case, or they're just going to ask directly without either of those things. All of those are correct approaches. So you have to understand your approach, But you also have to understand the approach of the person that you are talking to, which more often than not is going to be your manager. So if your manager is data oriented and you are storytelling oriented when it comes to communication, you're going to have to infuse some data into that ask in order to get them on your side. It doesn't mean that you can't use storytelling, but if the storytelling does not have data to back it up, then your manager is not going to get it. Some managers just want you to ask. They don't need all the background. They don't need the data. They don't need the storytelling. They need the direct ask, and you can just do that. So some of this is understanding the other person, but then also understanding yourself. And maybe you need to prepare that for yourself, but you don't necessarily need to use it. And then consider how you communicate best. Would it be better for you to have a one-on-one verbal conversation with somebody, or would it be better for you to write your thoughts out and email it? I know for me, I really thrive in a written environment more often than not, especially if I feel like the ask is going to be uncomfortable or I'm concerned about how it's going to be received. I can draft something written and be able to adjust the language in such a way that I can adjust for ways that I might not be able to adjust in person. Because again, I have a direct communication style, so that might not come off well to somebody who doesn't have that style that might be receiving it. So really think about that for yourself. But again, think about the person that's opposite you and what they need, or you do a combination of both. This is such a big one that I think everybody needs to touch on when we have, some hesitation when it comes to asking for what we want. But what fears and beliefs are holding you back from asking for what you want? We went over some of this in the beginning of the episode, but you really need to figure that out for yourself. Chances are there is a story that you are telling yourself around this topic, something that you believe based on something that's happened in the past, either in this organization or with this person, that you need to take a step back and really dissect for yourself and possibly reframe. So that is probably of this section. While communication is huge and you need to understand that, I think the fears and beliefs that are holding you back is secondary, like very, very important for this topic. Because if you think about asking for a promotion or a raise and it hits you like in the chest or in the stomach, like you have a physical reaction to it, you have to understand where that's coming from. And it might be you, it might be, something that happened in your past, it might be the culture that's around you, right? We talked about, being a woman, being BIPOC, being first gen. These just might be things that are hard given the culture that you've been around and what you have been told. So understand what that is for you so that you can break it down, change the narrative, and be able to move forward well. And then we have to talk about personality conflicts because, again, a lot of times this is a manager, sometimes it's a coworker, and we just have different personalities. And in that instance, you have to understand the other person. If they are the one that holds whatever you need, they're the one that has the answer that is going to help you move forward, and you do not get along with that person, it's up to you. I hate to say that, but it's up to you to figure out what those conflicts are and how can you circumvent them to be able to get what you want and need. Okay. So I know that's going to be hard for some people, and that might be something that requires like an extra step in terms of coaching to be able to really dig into your specific situation. So one of kind of the key points of this stage for this topic is you need to be able to ask something in your communication style, but you have to take the other person's communication style into consideration as well and try to mold those two things together as best you can. A lot of times we are told, oh, like, be true to who you are, all that. Yes, you absolutely need to be true to who you are and ask in a way that is authentic to you. But if you're also not taking the other person into consideration, then that's not going to be helpful because they're not going to hear you because it's not their style. So you want to merge together, take both into consideration. Let's move on to stage 3, which is purpose-driven plan. Now we're going to be talking about the goals related to this topic. And as always, your goals are going to be unique to you, but I want to give you a couple of goals that are very common with a topic like this. And so first is defining what you actually want. So we should have done that a little bit in realistic reality, probably refined it a little bit more in stage 2 with our personality preferences. But now in stage 3, we'll want to really hone in on what am I asking for? What do I need? The more specific that you can get with this, the easier it is to create the plan of action that goes along with it. So really think about that. Do you need more autonomy? Do you need a new project? Is it a title change? Is it a salary increase? Like, what is going to help you? And it might be smaller than that. It might not be a big thing. You just might be holding yourself back for whatever reason. So figure out what that ask is. Then I want you to clarify why this is important to you. That why is going to help you build the case. And it's also, I think, just going to give you more confidence when you understand or you're asked questions. If somebody says, why should I give you a title change? You have to be able to answer that. And remember, when we talked about communication in stage 2, you want to look at, is this a storytelling opportunity or is this a data opportunity or is it both? I know there was one point in my career where I knew that my position was being underpaid. And I had done some research around that and I brought it to my director and I said, the type of work I had a hybrid position, which was not common at that time. And so I actually put together some data of other positions and I ended up getting, I think it was like, I want to say it was about $7,000 adjustment in my pay, in my annual salary, because I had done the research and then my manager took it to HR, they verified it, and I was able to get that adjustment. But in that particular scenario, it wasn't about the storytelling aspect. It was about the data because it had to go to HR. And so that's what you have to figure out is what is the why, what makes it unique, special, different, and then come with whatever is needed to make a case for that. Okay. And then the other thing to consider is you want to think about trade-offs and adjustments when it comes to whatever you're asking for. So we have that main goal, but what are some things that you might be willing to let go, or what are some alternatives? If you know the landscape really well, what is something else you can offer? Anytime that we can negotiate, I think that is really helpful. Obviously, you don't want to pull that out immediately, but you want to be prepared for it. The one thing in this particular topic to understand with the goals is you have to be clear. This is a situation where vague requests are going to get vague outcomes. So you want to be really clear about what you are asking for. You want to understand the why. You want to be able to prepare some of those adjustments if they ask for it, or you might be able to use that as a negotiation tactic. So again, be very clear about what you want. So from there, we go into initiate action. And again, depending on what your goal is, will depend on what the action is. But there's likely going to be some common actions regardless of what you choose. And in this particular topic, it's going to be around communication. So whether that's verbal communication or written communication, your actions are likely going to be around that. When we are asking for something specific, especially if it's a big ask, but also sometimes a smaller ask as well, you want to make sure that you're requesting meetings with a very clear purpose. And so you can say, like, I'd like to talk through something important about my role, or I'd like to talk about the future of, my position here or my career at this organization, something very clear to help them understand the context of the meeting. And then from there, you want to have some of those talking points. Now, I think that there's something to be said if you are meeting in person, have some notes. If you're nervous, if you know that, speaking verbally and asking for what you want is hard, you forget things, you get flustered when they're right in front of you, like have some notes about what we've talked about today, right? Make your case, have the statistics, have the stories, have that out in front of you. There's nothing wrong with that. You need to feel confident in taking action. And if having notes is going to help you feel confident, then do that. For these types of conversations, I also think it's helpful to do some role play if you're really uncomfortable about it with either a coach or just somebody that you trust in your life. Have that conversation, have them ask you hard questions that your manager might ask so that you can be prepared with an answer. A lot of times, what throws us off are questions we're not anticipating, and that can really make us flustered in the moment. But I will say, if they ask you a question you don't know the answer to, it's fine to say, you know what? I don't actually know the answer to that, but let me get back to you after I've done some additional research or I've had some time to think about it. This isn't something that I can manage on the spot. That's okay. Nobody is expecting you to be perfect all the time or have all the answers all the time. Even though you might feel like it needs to be that way, it doesn't. All right. So remember that you want to create an environment when we're talking about taking action around these asks. You want to make sure that it feels like a win-win for everybody. And so anytime that you can bring something else to the table is also going to be helpful. But remember, I'm talking a lot about in-person communication because that's usually how these happen. But this can also happen through written communication if that is easier for you. And here is my one piece of advice. If you are going to use ChatGPT to help you draft some of these or some kind of AI to help you draft, make sure that you change the language. Like, don't make it sound like AI. Make sure that it sounds like you. At least do some type of draft and have chat like enhance it for you or have it poke holes in your argument. I think that's a great way to at least get started, but make sure that it doesn't sound like ChatGPT wrote it. I think that's one of my biggest pet peeves right now when it comes to AI. And then we're going to go into high impact habits. Now, I will say for this particular topic, while there are some habits that I think are helpful, habits are not something that I think are key to this outside of being able to continue to ask for what you want. And so sometimes that's going to be a little bit hard for you because you're warming up to it, you're getting used to it. But I think if you kind of do an evaluation like every month of, is there something I need to ask for? What's in my way? What does that look like? I think that is a helpful habit to consider. But this isn't something where I feel like, oh, we have to do this, we have to do that. I think this is a topic that once you understand what you need to ask for, you do some of the legwork, it becomes a lot easier to come up with some of these asks. So I'm not going to really highlight habits for this one, but really it's building self-advocacy for yourself. And so understanding your wins and all of that, and then continuing to work on your communication and confidence when it comes to, standing up for yourself, basically. So with this topic, one thing to remember is that people cannot support you if they don't know what you want. So the more specific and aligned your requests are, the more likely that you are going to get what you need. And if you're gunning for leadership, then that's a way that they're also going to see you as a leader. Leaders are going to ask for things. They're not going to wait to be told what they want or need. If this episode resonated with you, please subscribe so that you don't miss future episodes, and share this episode with somebody who has likely been putting their own needs last at work. And then also check the show notes for a free Control Your Career worksheet to outline some of the questions and thoughts that I have gone through in this episode today. And until next time, keep taking control of your career.